Hey, what's up, nerds? Paul Conti back again for my second battle report. This time we're doing a little Free People versus the forces of Khorne. It was a 2,000 point game. We rolled up for a scenario. We got three places of power. In a nutshell, that scenario puts three objectives in the middle of the map, and you score points by holding them with a hero at the end of the battle round. And you cumulatively get more points for having a hero there longer on that one point. The list that I brought for this particular game, I brought a free guild general to be my general. The idea is I'm going to be relying heavily on shooting, so I wanted him to hang back and give buffs to my shooting units to give them some extra power. I took a Bretonnian Lord to be sort of a hunter-killer. I gave him the Relic Blade to give him some extra damage on his attacks. I took two units of Free Guild Guard with swords for my battle line troops and some handgunners for rounding out my battle line, as well as some additional shooting power. Took a unit of 20 great swords, a big unit of 6 demigriffs. I wanted to try out running a larger block of those and see how that would go. Two Empire cannons for some heavy firepower, and of course a Celestial Hurricanum because you don't leave home without it. Here's what deployment looked like. On my side, from left to right, I dropped my swordsman all the way off on my left flank. Inside those woods there, I hid all of my handgunners to give them some cover. They were going to be sticking around there for the whole game, so I wanted to take advantage of that and get them some good cover. Also, the way we had deployed the scenery, it gave them a nice big open field of view there, and they were going to be able to hit units that were on either of those two objective markers from where they were sitting. So they were pretty well placed there, I thought. Next, we've got the Celestial Hurricanum that's sitting between my cannons and my handgunners, so they're all getting that +1 to hit buff. And it's also nice and centrally located. To the right of that, we've got another unit of swordsmen, my general hanging out right in the middle of the map to dole out his various buffs. One thing that I did forget in my list, right there, dead center of my deployment zone, is a Gryph-hound. I had some extra points, so I thought I would throw him in there. And I feel like I got my 40 points worth out of him, as we'll see later on. Demigriffs also hanging out in the middle, cannons hanging out in the middle all the way off to the board edge. On my right flank, I've got that big unit of great swords. My goal there was to sort of intimidate off of the objective to the right-hand side of the board, so that my opponent would be a bit wary of it, and I can jump on it with my Bretonnian Lord, who is deployed hanging out there in the woods. My idea here was to kind of lay down heavy firepower on two of the objective points to try and control those with shooting. And ward off the third objective point with my great swords and move in and take them with my own heroes kind of once the coast was clear. I really wanted to try and clear all of his heroes off the board first, and play a little bit more defensively and see how things went from there. Hopefully you can kind of see what's going on with my opponent's deployment here, all the way off to his left, or I'm sorry, to my left, his right, a big unit of 6 Skull Crushers. There's a Bloodthirster hanging out in that left third of the board. 2 units of Blood Reavers hanging out in the middle, as well as I believe those are Dragon Ogres that were behind them, a variety of different heroes. Mighty Lord of Khorne on a Juggernaut. Behind that tower, there's another unit of 6 Juggernauts. Off to the right, we've got some Blood Warriors, a Korgorath, and a Demon Prince. So he's pretty well stacked on heroes. He's got a lot of firepower. The biggest threat for me, I think, right now off the top was that Bloodthirster, and as we'll see pretty soon, I made pretty short work of that and was pretty happy with the performance there. His strategy overall seemed to be to put as much forward pressure as possible and have his heroes hang out in the back and let the melee go on in front, and while all the fighting is going on my end of the field, to just score points with the heroes hanging back and not really getting involved in combat. So, without further ado, I rolled up first turn. I took top of turn one. Top of turn one, I didn't really do much. I just kind of moved everything up a little bit on this right flank. I kept my Bretonnian Lord still inside of that Wildwood. I didn't want to jump out and take the point right away because I thought it was going to be a pretty easy charge for him to get in there right away, and I would end up just losing my Lord and not ever actually scoring any points with him. What I really wanted to do was have him hang back a little bit and score points later on, responding to my opponent's movements. The Demigryphs, I got off a Mystic Shield on them. You can see the marker on them there. Other than that, not a whole heck of a lot going on this flank. Over on the left flank, though, did a little bit of maneuvering, got my swordsman wrapping around my units a little bit, moved up my Celestial Hurricanum so that it is going to be in range of those two objective markers, so that when my opponent moves up, he's going to be moving into the range of the portents of battle. With this, I also took some shots at that that big-ass demon up in the back with my cannons, and I dropped a whole lot of lead on it. After the first round of shooting, it was already down to only 6 wounds left. That was a pretty huge win there. So almost killed the darn thing before it even got off the line. My opponent's first turn, he's basically moving everything up as aggressively as possible. He did end up scoring a point off of that Bloodthirster. Everybody else is just sort of moving forward in a fairly predictable Khorne-like fashion, getting up there quickly, trying to get all of his guys into combat. Same thing over on this right flank. Just kind of getting things into position. On this side, he wasn't yet getting anything onto those objective markers, but that's okay. He didn't really need to do that at this point in the game, nor was he actually going to be able to reach them with any of his heroes. That Bloodthirster was the only thing that had enough movement to get on top of a point on top of turn one. So these guys, MVPs of the game, making up their points very quickly, taking down that Bloodthirster top of turn two. So that was a big threat out of the way. And I was able to start picking off some other things here and there, focus my attention onto some other things that might get in the way, start scoring points. You'll see that I moved my Gryph-hound up into position to sort of try and take a charge, see if I could bait him a little bit into making an overly aggressive move, which of course worked because it's Khorne and you really don't need to do much to bait Khorne. All you really have to do is bleed and have blood and maybe a skull. Over on the right flank, I got a little overzealous. I charged in with my Demigryphs. Here was my line of thinking on this, because this turned out to be a really stupid idea, but I think the concept that I was working with was pretty good. I knew that a lot of his stuff had a lot of buffs on the charge, so I wanted to try and deny him the opportunity to get a charge off. I wanted to have a charge myself because I get a whole bunch of buffs with my Demigryphs on the charge. So all of that so far making sense. If I'm able to get his heroes into close combat and keep them there for a little while, they may not be able to advance onto that objective marker. So, the Demigryphs have a pretty strong save. I was thinking maybe they'll survive a few rounds of combat and I'll hold up those heroes. Not so much. Here's what things look at like after that bit of combat. My Demigryphs were soundly routed and I did not have much to say about anything. And he advanced everything up, got his Lord on Juggernaut on top of that objective to start scoring points there. He advanced further with his Demon Prince over toward my Bretonnian Lord to try and deny me of points. And those Juggernauts were staring down my great swords, and they were looking like a mighty tasty target. Very quickly, those guys also got charged, and that unit just evaporated really quickly. He got the charge off as well with his Demon Prince into my Bretonnian Lord. That one was a little bit of a pillow fight for a little while. Bretonnian Lord has a natural 3-up save, plus he was sitting in cover, so he was sporting a 2-up save. So not a lot was happening to him while he was hanging out there. He did get a little bit of damage onto that Demon Prince, but as we'll see, he didn't end up actually lasting that long. Meanwhile, on the left flank, he did continue to advance his guys forward. He failed a couple of charges, which was really pretty critical. It gave me some more time to get some shooting off. He did successfully charge that Griffhound with some Blood Reavers, though, and that was sort of a mixed bag. I think I ended up basically giving him some free movement across the board and giving him some extra room, which he didn't need by any means. I think I probably should have held all of this back a bit more. Back over on the right flank, just a shot of the now disappearing great swords. Those are all gone. And my Bretonnian Lord, I was hoping he could hold out just long enough to try and run away and challenge that objective, but it ended up not happening that way, and he just died pretty quickly. Back over to the middle, more combat with those Blood Reavers. I pile in. I do a little bit of damage to him. He does a little bit of damage to me. Not really anything all that exciting going on. I got those swordsmen in there because he did manage to move within 3 inches, which was kind of good for me. I'm not sure ultimately how that worked out. I think I ended up just kind of giving him better charge targets, which may have been working against me. Thankfully, I did get the top of the next turn. This is just him, after his movement, moving more onto that Bretonnian Lord and starting to swing those Juggernauts around to start going after my cannons. He did get that charge off, finally, with those Juggernauts into my swordsman. I did get a stand and shoot from the handgunners. As a result, was able to take one of them down and put some damage onto another one, and the rest of those Reavers made a charge in, and everything else advanced up onto the objective markers. Pretty much, I think his game plan going exactly as the way he wanted it to. I was getting a lot of damage in with those cannons and the handgunners, though. I was pretty happy with that. My general retreated into that wildwood to get some extra protection there because things were starting to look a little bit dicey, and I wanted to make sure that I had his buffs to dole out for another round. So here's what things looked at after that charge. He got his charge in. I got some damage onto them. He took out a whole bunch of my swordsmen, and he didn't throw any of his attacks onto my handgunners, thankfully, so I was able to preserve them for another round of combat. On the other side of the board, Bretonnian Lord, gone. That whole game plan of hide him in the forest and pounce on that objective later on in the game really ended up not working well whatsoever. Back over to the other side. Right around now is when I decided, hey, maybe I should start actually trying to score some points. There was a pretty good melee going on with all of those Blood Reavers turning into one giant blob. So I got my general out there, and he was going to start trying to make his way over to that objective marker. Did some shooting onto those Juggernauts, and put some more damage on them. Not really anything too exciting. I don't know why I did this. This was definitely a misplay on my part, but I trained my cannons over onto the Juggernauts that were coming around to the side. I think that was a pretty stupid move because I wasn't going to be able to kill all of them, and I was probably going to be much better off trying to take down his heroes that were scoring points. That's definitely a good takeaway from me from this particular game. Other than that, he kind of gave up on the right flank. All the units that were over there, they were just too far away from the action at this point to really be relevant in any way. So he just kind of left them there. Interestingly enough, that sort of had the effect of me deleting part of his list on him after it really didn't do much. So that one was kind of interesting. Here I kind of go for broke. Again, I charged with my Hurricanum into the Blood Reavers. They have no save and fairly low bravery, so I was hoping to get a couple of wounds in on them and have the rest explode to battle shock. Did the same thing with my general. He got a long charge, so I swung him around back. Didn't quite get enough for him to be able to also be challenging that objective, which was kind of my goal. But the damage I was able to put on those Blood Reavers let him get freed up for the next turn and a charge on that Bloodstoker that was hanging out back there on the objective. Next turn, I tee up my charge. As you can see down there, all the combat and shooting, got one Juggernaut left and two handgunners left. Really kind of got down to the wire there. That whole combat was basically just Juggernauts versus handgunners, and with a big pillow of swordsmen in the way. I need to math hammer that a little bit to see how that combat actually worked out and see, who came away with a better points outcome. Because it basically got down to the end on both of them. As you'll see in the middle, all the Blood Reavers now gone due to battle shock. And I moved my Hurricanum and my general up towards that objective marker to challenge it and hopefully kill that Blood Stoker. Man, everything in the Khorne army has blood or skull or something in the name. It's hard to keep all this stuff straight. Anyway, he's got his other dudes up on the middle objective marker and off to the right. That Mighty Lord of Khorne on a Juggernaut still just hanging out on that objective. And on the final turn, I made the charge into that Bloodstoker and blew him straight off the board with my general. Did a little bit of damage here and there with the Hurricanum, but nothing too exciting. Overall, the Hurricanum came away fairly unscathed until it got charged by the Dragon Ogres and got a bunch of damage put on it. And just to kind of clean things up, he charged his Juggernauts into my cannons to clear some more things off the board. The ending score for this was something like 25-3 or something ridiculous like that. So you didn't even really need to do that, but it was just sort of, housekeeping, clean up, got to clean everything out. Spill all the blood for the Blood God, all the skulls for the Skull Throne. Was definitely a fun game. I lost this one pretty badly. I came away learning a lot of things and thinking about things in some different ways. I'm definitely going back to the drawing board with list building and trying to come up with some new ideas. Definitely was a lot of fun. Great opponent. I've played against him before. He always brings a really aggressive, strong list to the table. Always makes really good decisions. So definitely can't blame this one on the Dice Gods. I definitely think I just got outplayed on this particular game. So that's it for now. Feel free to leave questions and comments down below. Hit that like button, the subscribe button. More of these to come. Hoping to get out a couple more of these this week if I can get games in before I start a new job next week. So I've got a little bit of free time on my hands, and I'll be throwing up another video pretty soon with some thoughts on playing Free People, assembling lists, and what I'm going to be doing going forward, because I'm definitely learning some things as we go here. Free People is a pretty complex, deep army to be putting lists together with, so there's a lot of things that you kind of find work, some things don't work, and there's a lot of different combinations. So I'm exploring them all, I'm learning all the time. I hope you are too. Hope you enjoyed the video. As always, again, hit like, hit subscribe. Always love the feedback, so feel free to leave comments and questions down below, and I will see you all later.